Hey Ottawa, this is Annalee Rice with Royal LePage Performance Realty, and here is your Monday market snapshot of Ottawa's real estate market for Monday, March 13th, 2023. You'll see that I've adjusted the slides for the citywide data. It's all on one slide now. So when we look at the active listings, we see 55 more properties actively listed this week than last, which is the first real jump that we've had so far this spring. For the number of sold properties, the sales are up, but not by a whole lot. It's only 8 up, which is about a 4% increase as per last week. And there may also be a little bit of a factor of March break. A lot of people prepping to go away or people being away this week that could play into some of these numbers. You'll see here that I've added a few new slides. This first one is a graph version of our active listings, conditionally sold properties, and sold properties. Just to clarify, the sold numbers represent the cumulative number of sales throughout the week leading up to when the data is pulled. And in contrast, the active listings and the conditionally sold properties are a snapshot of how many properties are active or conditionally sold based on the time and date that I pull the data. The second new slide shows us the properties that were listed each week versus the properties that we're selling each week. And this should give us a nice visual on whether or not the active listings should be climbing. The one caveat on this is that those new listings or the properties listed each week contain both brand new listings as well as those that are relisted each week. And that's why I always give that data. So for example, this week we had 308 properties listed, and 83%, which is 255 of those, were new to the market properties, while 17% or 53 of those properties were actually relists. So relists don't increase our number of active listings. And the third chart that I've shared here shows us the number of properties that are selling without conditions, that's in the red, as compared to the number of properties that are selling with a conditional period, that's the orange. And as we see, it's starting to trend down a little bit, but it's generally around the 20 to 25% without conditions, 75% to 80% with conditions. One last little bit of information that I have been sharing, but I don't have in a graph form, is the number of properties selling within 1 week and the number of properties selling within 1 month. So this week we had 185 properties sell, and 18% of those sold within 1 week of being listed, and 58% of those sold within the 30 days. You'll notice that the properties selling within 1 week kind of closely resembles how many properties are selling without any conditions, because typically a property that sells within 7 days is probably selling without any conditions at all. Okay, so then next up, I will share the data for the zoomed in areas of the city. In the central urban region, we'll see pretty much a mirror of the citywide stats. The active listings are up, and the sales of detached homes rose most significantly. In Canada and Stittsville, we see that the detached homes, not only are there more properties listed, but there were also way more sales, 50% or more up. But then also with the condominiums, the number of condominiums listed was down fairly significantly, and then also the number of condominium sales dropped this week. In Barrhaven and Riverside South, we see similar increases to the active listings for detached homes and condominiums, but the sales were slow across the board, especially with 0 condominiums that sold this week. What a change from last week when we had 6 condominiums that sold. And finally, in Orleans, the most notable thing is that there's a 30% increase in the number of condominiums listed. As well, there was an increase in the condominiums that sold this past week. As always, I've got the full stats in table form here for the detached townhomes and condominiums. If you follow along each week, you'll see that the days on the market are definitely starting to decrease as we have more active listings. Most notably, it's in the townhomes selling. We have about 30-day average for cumulative days on the market for townhomes to sell across the city. And there is still a discrepancy if you look at the cumulative days on market for the active properties versus the sold. You'll see that there's quite a difference in the ones selling are selling a lot quicker than the ones that are actively marketed. And so that tells me that there are still a lot of holdout properties that are being listed and that are simply overpriced for today's market. And while I always suggest caution when looking at weekly stats due to the fact that numbers are dependent on such a small sample of sales, it is interesting to note that the condos in the suburbs this week were selling quicker than those in the central part of the city. To make sure you get notified of these weekly updates, follow me on Instagram or find me on YouTube at Your Ottawa Realtor. I hope you have a great week.